I've gotten so many friends into Brandon Sanderson, and yet I have only read Mistborn Era 1 and Stormlight. The people I introduced it to, they finished it before me, and I decided it's time to actually catch up on the Cosmere. I want to read every single Cosmere book before the next Mistborn Era comes out. The current schedule has Mistborn Era 3, Book 1, coming out at the end of 2028. That gives me a full 2.5 years to read close to 30 books, 25 books maybe. I'm not even sure how many it is. I haven't compiled the whole list yet, but I know I want to read them all, and I want to be fully caught up with the Cosmere before the Mistborn movies come out, before it gets even bigger than it already has gotten. I've been reading them for 10 years, but I've only ever actually read Mistborn Era 1 and Stormlight, and a couple other Brandon books that aren't Cosmere related. And I only just recently finished Stormlight Archive, even though the book, Wind and Truth, has been out for 2 years. So I think it's well past time that I catch up. The issue, I'm really bad at reading. There's a lot of stories that are stuck behind those pages that I want to know about. A lot of stories I want to experience. Lots of other books, fantasy books, sci-fi books, many other genre of books. Lots of books that I've heard people say that I would really enjoy. Lots of stories that are stuck there on the pages that I just don't set aside time to actually read. And I'm tired of that. I mean, because really, I love talking about the stories that are in the books. Once I've actually completed them and talked to my friends about them, it's actually really, really enjoyable. I've always enjoyed reading and enjoyed the stories that are in there, but I always end up doing something else. I'm either on my phone, playing a game, playing video games, watching TV, doing nothing on my phone, literally anything else except finishing a chapter of a book, which takes 10 minutes. I want to actually set aside time to read those and ensure that I'm actually progressing and not just wasting time on a video game. So I decided I would try to read one book a month to push myself to get back into reading, both to finish the Cosmere and also to read all of these other great stories that I've heard so many people talk about. Maybe Neuromancer, The Expanse, Red Rising in there, Dungeon Crawler Carl, I've heard is very good, that I should give it a shot. I think the major challenges that are going to face me will just be work. I mean, like, I get home from work and honestly, it sounds exhausting to like sit somewhere and read. Like, I'll sit there and I'll read and I'll get through one chapter and I'll be tired. I want to know what happens next in the story and I want to keep reading, but I'll get a couple chapters in and I just get really tired. There's also like the times of like just tons of distractions, whether it's family or it's just my phone or it's anything. Just me thinking of something else that I want to do. And then suddenly I'm just out of like the zone of reading. I can't engage with the book as well as I was doing before. I mean, the goal of this channel, right, is to try to do things that I want to do, but I just don't have the experience. I don't have the mental fortitude. I just haven't trained my brain to be able to do these different things that I actually want to do. I end up just doing the same thing over and over again. I mean, the hope is that like I don't have to make videos in order to like force myself to read. But I guess let's talk about like how the first 2 months went. So for the past 2 months, I have successfully read 2 books. I read the first Mistborn book and the second Mistborn book. So I am now currently on to the third Mistborn book. Now, I have read these 3 books before, 10 years ago. I started reading the second era Mistborn book, and I couldn't remember anything that was happened. I remember like the large moments, but I don't remember many of the things that were happening in the Mistborn Era 1 books. I had friends read Mistborn Era 1 book, and they told me about all of these crazy things that happened. I don't remember what happened. So I decided I should probably reread them. Since I'm starting this Cosmere challenge of reading all of them to catch up, I figured it's a good place to start, is like his first really big book. So 2 months in, and I've read 2 books, and I feel good about that. Now, will I keep that same pace? Especially since, I mean, these books aren't necessarily small. They aren't absurdly large like the Stormlight Archive books. But these books are big enough that it's a challenge for me, who is not an experienced reader, I would say. I did not read every day. I had wanted to make a challenge of let me read 2 chapters a day, because if I read 2 chapters a day, I'll finish the book in a month. Well, let me tell you, that did not happen. I would read chapter stretches. I would go 5 days and I'd read 5 chapters a day, and I'd be very into it for those 5 days. And then a week would go by and I hadn't read at all. Like, I know I want to read. Why am I not reading every day? I know I want to keep going with this book. The story's really exciting. I love this story. Why am I going a week without reading? I think that's just part of getting into a new hobby. It just takes a little bit of time to retrain your brain to want to do that hobby when you're used to doing all of these other things that feed you so much dopamine. That's pretty much the story of the first 2 months entirely. I would read a good portion. I would pause for a longer time than I want to pause for, a week, 10 days, something like that. Even like 4 days, I would be a little bit annoyed that it's like, I want to get back to that book. Why am I doing all these other things that are taking up the rest of my time? I think it's just about like reprioritizing like what you want to do with your life. The good news is that even though it's really hard right now to think about how I could be consistent with reading, I've got a lot of time because 2.5 years and 30 books of practice with this, and I should be pretty good after that.